I came back from my trip, and when I walked into my bedroom, I couldn't find my bed. My daughter-in-law appeared smiling and said, "We redecorated everything. This room is mine now." I kept my cool, looked her straight in the eye, and replied, "You want a space all to yourself? Perfect. You can start looking for a new house to live in today." Just like that, the color drained from her face. When I opened the door to my house after being away for 15 days, the first thing I felt was that something was wrong. The air smelled different, like fresh paint and expensive perfume that wasn't mine. I left my suitcase at the entrance and walked slowly down the hall, my heart starting to beat faster, as if my body knew something my mind didn't want to accept yet. My feet took me straight to my room. The door was ajar. I pushed it open with a trembling hand, and that's when my world stopped. My bed was gone. That mahogany bed where I had slept for 25 years, where I had cried over my husband's death, where I had sewn my children's clothes in the early mornings. It had vanished. In its place was a modern white bed with decorative pillows that looked like they were straight out of a magazine. The walls I had painted a soft peach color were now a light gray. My photographs, the photos from my wedding of my young children, of my husband with his warm smile, they were no longer hanging on the walls. I felt the floor move beneath my feet. "Do you like how it turned out, mother-in-law?" The voice came from behind me, sweet as poisoned honey. I turned around slowly. There was Valerie, my daughter-in-law, leaning against the doorframe with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She was wearing a tight wine-colored dress, her hair freshly styled, her nails perfectly manicured. She looked victorious. "What did you do?" My voice came out weaker than I wanted. "We redecorated. The house needed a change, something more modern, more functional." She walked closer and ran her hand along the gray wall. "And well, this room is perfect for me. It has better light, more space. Robert and I needed it." My hands began to shake. I clenched them into fists to control them. "Where are my things? Where is my bed?" Valerie sighed as if I were a child throwing a tantrum. "In the garage. Everything's there, stored away safely. Don't worry." She paused and tilted her head. "We thought you could stay in the guest room. It's smaller, yes, but at your age you don't need that much space, right? Besides, this way, you don't have to climb stairs every day." Every word was a slap in the face. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't give her that satisfaction. I looked her straight in the eyes, those eyes that now shone with something I had never seen before, contempt. And in that moment I understood something that broke my soul. To her, I wasn't a person. I was an obstacle, an old piece of furniture that needed to be moved to make space. I took a deep breath. "You want a space just for yourself?" I said, with a calmness I didn't know I had. She smiled wider, thinking she had won. "Perfect," I continued. "Today you're going to start looking for a new house to live in." Her smile froze. The color drained from her face as if someone had flipped a switch. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. "What did you say?" "You heard me, Valerie. If you need your own space so badly, get your own house. This one is mine." But what I didn't know at that moment, what I couldn't yet imagine, was that this confrontation was just the beginning, because Valerie hadn't acted alone, and what I would discover in the coming days was going to destroy me in ways I couldn't even imagine. Because when you trust the people you love, you never expect them to stab you in the back, especially when those people are your own blood. If this story is touching your heart, subscribe to the Elderly Stories channel to continue hearing real testimonials from women who found their strength when all seemed lost. Valerie looked at me as if I had lost my mind. She let out a nervous laugh, the kind that sounds fake even to the person making it. "Mother-in-law, you can't be serious. Kicking us out." "But Robert is your son. This is his house too." "I bought this house," I said, and my voice now sounded firmer. "I paid for it brick by brick with the sweat of my brow, and nobody asked my permission to touch my things." Just then Robert appeared in the hallway. My son. The boy I carried in my womb, whom I raised alone after his father died, to whom I gave everything I had and didn't have. He was in sweatpants and a t-shirt, looking like he just woke up even though it was already 3 in the afternoon. "What's going on?" "Why are you yelling?" he asked, scratching his head. "Your wife turned my bedroom into hers," I said, feeling the rage begin to break through the calm I had maintained. "Without asking me, without even telling me. Did you know?" Robert avoided my gaze. He stared at the floor just like when he was a boy, and I caught him in a lie. "Mom, Valerie said it was a surprise, that we wanted to renovate the house to make it look better." "I didn't think—" "You didn't think—" I interrupted him. "Or you didn't want to think." Valerie moved closer to him and took his arm in a gesture that was meant to be protective, but seemed possessive to me. "Robert, your mom is exaggerating. We just made some improvements. The house was so outdated with ancient furniture. We did it for everyone's good." "For everyone's good?" I repeated, feeling something hot rise in my chest. "Where is the good for me in all of this?" Robert finally looked at me. "Mom, calm down. It's not a big deal. We can fix up the guest room really nice for you. We can even—" "I don't want you to fix anything for me." I cut him off. "I want my room. I want my things. I want to be respected in my own house." The silence that followed was thick, uncomfortable. Valerie squeezed Robert's arm tighter. "Mother-in-law, I think you're being a little selfish," she said, her tone changing now. It was colder. "This house is big." "It has 4 bedrooms. Why do you need the biggest one if you're alone? Robert and I need space. We're thinking about having a baby soon and—" "Then find a house for that baby," I said. Robert sighed in frustration. "Mom, don't be like that. Where are we supposed to go? We live here. This is our home. Your home," I repeated slowly, letting the words hang in the air. "And what about mine?" I needed to see my things. I needed to confirm with my own eyes that this wasn't a nightmare. I went down the stairs to the garage with Robert and Valerie following me. When I opened the door, the smell of dampness hit me in the face. There they were, my furniture, my antique wooden dresser that had belonged to my mother, my disassembled bed leaning against the wall, my boxes. I opened one with trembling hands and found my photographs thrown in carelessly, some with broken frames. The photo of my wedding with Louis, the glass shattered right over his smiling face. I felt something inside me break. "We stored them carefully," Valerie said from behind, but her voice sounded hollow without conviction. I took the broken photograph in my hands. Louis looked at me from the past, young, happy, not knowing he would die just 12 years later and leave me alone to raise our children. I clutched the frame to my chest. "I need to be alone," I murmured. "Mom!" Robert tried to get closer. "I said I need to be alone!" I shouted, and my voice echoed off the garage walls. They left. I heard them go up the stairs and close the door. I stayed there sitting on the cold garage floor, surrounded by my life packed in cardboard boxes as if it were worthless. I cried. I cried like I hadn't cried since Louis's funeral. But these tears were different. They weren't tears of sadness for an inevitable loss. They were tears of rage, of betrayal, of a pain so deep it was hard to breathe. Because it's one thing to lose someone to death. It's another thing entirely for the living to erase you, discard you, treat you like you're in the way in your own home. That night, I slept in the guest room, or tried to. The bed was small, the mattress hard, and from there I could hear Valerie and Robert laughing in my bedroom. Sometime in the middle of the night, I heard them making love. And I, the owner of that house, was lying there in a room that smelled of disuse, staring at the ceiling, wondering when my life had turned into this. But what they didn't know, what I still didn't realize, was that this humiliation was just the beginning. Because the next day, I was going to discover something that would force me to open my eyes once and for all. Something that would show me that the redecoration of my room wasn't just a whimsical makeover, it was part of a plan they had been plotting for months, and I had been so blind, so trusting, that I didn't see the signs until it was too late, or maybe not too late after all. I couldn't sleep. The hours passed slowly, heavily, as I tossed and turned in that small bed that creaked with every movement. At 4 in the morning, I gave up. I got up and went to the kitchen to make myself some chamomile tea, the kind my mom used to make for me when I was a little girl and couldn't sleep. The house was silent. The only sound was the ticking of the wall clock that Louis gave me for our 10th anniversary. I sat at the kitchen table, the warm mug in my hands, and memories washed over me like waves. I remembered when Louis and I were young, dreaming of having our own house. We lived in a rented 2-bedroom apartment downtown with walls so thin we could hear everything the neighbors did. Louis worked as a mechanic, and I sold tamales in the mornings. We saved every dollar, every single dollar. I remembered the day we found the land. It was an empty lot in a rough part of town far from the city center, with no utilities, but it was the only thing we could afford. $20,000 that took us 8 years to save. When we signed the deed, Louis picked me up and spun me around in the middle of the dusty lot. "We're going to build our future here, my love," he told me. I was 32, he was 35. We never got to build it together. 2 years after the accident, Louis died when a car ran a red light and hit him on his way to work. I was left alone with Robert, who was 15, and Lucy, who was 12, with no money, still without our own house, but with a piece of land and a promise I had made at his grave. Our children were going to have that home. I took 2 jobs, sometimes 3. I cooked in a diner from 6 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon. Then I cleaned offices from 4 to 9 at night. On weekends, I sold gelatin desserts and cakes at children's parties. I slept 4 hours a day. My hands became calloused. My back began to hurt constantly, but I kept saving. Robert would tell me, "Mom, rest. The house doesn't matter." But it did matter. To me, that house was more than bricks. It was proof that Louis's sacrifice hadn't been in vain. It was my way of honoring his memory. It was the stability my children deserved. It took me 15 years to save the $80,000 for the construction. 15 years of watching other mothers go to school festivals while I worked. 15 years without buying new clothes for myself, without going to the movies, without treating myself to anything. Everything, absolutely everything, went to the house. When we finally finished building it, I was 49. I invited my children to see their home. Robert, already 30, came with Valerie. They had been dating for 6 months. She walked in looking at everything with disinterest, as if it were just any old house. She didn't know. She couldn't know. That every tile in the bathroom had cost me a double shift. That every window represented a month of not eating meat. That the spacious living room existed because I had worn shoes with holes in them for 2 years. Lucy, however, cried. My daughter hugged me and whispered in my ear, "You did it, Mom. Dad would be so proud." Now, sitting in my kitchen at 4 in the morning at 67 years old and feeling every one of those years in my tired body, I wondered what was it all for, to end up displaced in my own house, for my daughter-in-law to erase my history as if it were worthless, for my son to allow them to treat me this way. The tears fell again, silent, bitter. I heard footsteps on the stairs. It was Robert. He came down in his boxers and a t-shirt, his eyes swollen with sleep. He was surprised to see me. "Mom, what are you doing up?" I didn't answer right away. I looked at him. I tried to see in this 42-year-old man the boy who used to hug me and tell me I was the best mom in the world, but that boy wasn't there anymore. "I can't sleep in that bed," I finally said. "My back hurts." Robert opened the fridge and took out some water. He poured a glass and stood there, not looking at me. "Mom, I know you're upset, but..." "Do you know how much this house cost me, Robert?" He fell silent. "Do you know how many nights I worked without sleep so you could have a roof over your head? How many times I skipped meals so you could eat 3 times a day? Mom, don't start with that. No, son, I need you to understand." I stood up, feeling my knees protest. This house isn't just walls and a roof. It's my blood, it's my life, and you two are treating it like a piece of property you can just remodel whenever you feel like it. Robert put the glass down on the table with more force than necessary. "So what do you want me to do? Tell Valerie to undo everything." "We already spent $15,000 on the remodeling, Mom." $15,000? I froze. "What did you say?" "The paint, the furniture, the decorator, all of that costs money." "And where did you get that money?" Robert looked away. We have our savings." But something in his tone told me he was lying. I knew him too well. When he lied, he would scratch the back of his neck and avoid looking me in the eye just like he was doing now. "Robert, look at me." He didn't. "Look at me." He raised his eyes, and in them I saw something that scared me. Guilt. Deep guilt. "What did you do?" I asked, feeling fear creep up my spine. "Nothing, Mom. We just improved the house. That's all." "Did you use my money?" "No." "Then what?" Silence. A silence that weighed a ton. Robert finished his water in one gulp and headed for the stairs. "I'm going back to sleep. You're being paranoid." I was left alone in the kitchen again, but now fear had settled in my chest like a clenched fist, because I knew my son, and I knew when he was hiding something from me, something big. The next day I was going to start looking for answers. I was going to open drawers, check papers, ask questions, and what I was about to discover would break my heart into even smaller pieces. Because sometimes the greatest pain doesn't come from strangers. It comes from the people who swore to love you. And when that betrayal is revealed, the world is never the same again. For the next 3 days, I acted as if nothing had happened, as if I had accepted my new place in the hierarchy of my own house. I made breakfast, I cleaned, I smiled when I had to smile. But inside every fiber of my being was on high alert, watching, listening. Valerie paraded around the house like a queen. She had taken over not only my bedroom, but also my space in the kitchen. She moved my cast iron pans, the ones Louis had given me, to the top cabinet where I could barely reach. She put her expensive ceramic pots in the place where mine had always been. Little victories she savored every time I had to ask for her help to get something down. Robert left for work early and came back late. An engineer at a construction company, he made good money, but it was never enough for his expenses. It had always been like that. He spent more than he had. When he was young, I covered his small debts. "He's young, he's learning," I told myself. Now he was 42 and still hadn't learned. On the third day, Valerie went out to the salon. "I'm getting my hair done, mother-in-law." "I'll be back in 3 hours," she said while putting on lipstick in front of the entryway mirror. My mirror, the one I had bought at an antique market 20 years ago. Robert was at work. The house was empty, silent. It was my chance. I went up the stairs slowly, holding my breath as if someone could hear me. I entered what had been my bedroom. The smell of Valerie's perfume saturated the air. It made me nauseous, but I pushed forward. I opened the closet. All my clothes were gone. In their place, expensive dresses, designer shoes, purses that cost what I used to earn in a month when I worked. I closed the closet and went to the desk. It was new, modern, made of glass. On it was a closed laptop. I didn't touch it. I didn't know how to use those tech things. But I opened the drawers, papers, lots of papers, invoices for furniture, $4,500 at a luxury decor store, payment receipts to an interior designer, $3,000, receipts for imported paint for curtains for a lamp that cost more than my first car, and then I found something that made my blood run cold. A manila folder. Inside, documents printed from the internet, pages about property possession rights through improvements, legal articles highlighted in yellow. When a family member invests significant money in improvements to a property, they can claim rights to it, especially if there is prolonged cohabitation and the original owner is of advanced age. My hands started shaking so much, I almost dropped the papers. There were notes in the margins, Valerie's handwriting. Lawyer consultation, $500. Document all improvements. Before and after photos. I kept looking. Deeper in the drawer, I found an envelope. Inside were photocopies of documents, the deed to my house, but these copies had sticky notes on them. Change to joint name. How much possession time is needed? My throat closed up. I couldn't breathe. Valerie hadn't redecorated just for fun. She was building a case. She was documenting investments to claim rights to my house, to the house that I had built with 15 years of my sweat and tears. I took out my cell phone, an old one Lucy had given me, and took pictures of everything with trembling hands. I wasn't sure how the camera worked, but I pressed buttons until I heard the click. I put everything back exactly as it was and left the room. I went down to the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of water but couldn't swallow. The water was stuck in my throat along with the knot of betrayal that was growing and growing. I needed more information. I waited for night to fall. Robert came home at 9, tired. He went straight to take a shower. Valerie was watching TV in the living room on my favorite armchair eating popcorn that she dropped on the floor without picking it up. I went to bed early. Or pretended to. At 11 o'clock, I heard Valerie talking on the phone. Her voice was coming from the backyard. I got up without making a sound and went to the guest room window that overlooked the yard. The thin curtains allowed me to see without being seen. There she was walking among my geranium pots, the cell phone pressed to her ear. "It's almost ours, Mom, I swear." Her voice sounded excited, triumphant. "The old lady is confused. She says she's going to kick us out, but she can't. Robert is her son." "This is his home, too." Silence while she listened to her mother on the other end. "No, she doesn't know about the loan yet." "Robert is scared of her. He's not going to tell her," she laughed. "Imagine her face when she finds out we used the house as collateral." "But by then, we'll have everything sorted out." My heart stopped. Loan collateral. "Look, Mom, the plan is simple," Valerie continued. "We keep investing in improvements. The more money we put in, the stronger our legal case. The lawyer said that if she tries to kick us out, we can countersue for the investments. And if she gets difficult, well, she's already 67. How much time does she have left? 5-10 years max. After that, this house will be worth over $200,000 with all the work we've done. We'll sell it and buy something better in a nice neighborhood, just like you always wanted." Tears were rolling down my cheeks, but I made no sound. I bit my fist to keep from screaming. "Robert is a fool, but he's easy to manipulate," Valerie went on. "His mom has him so traumatized that he'll do anything not to disappoint her, but she doesn't manipulate me. I know what I want, and I'm going to get it." More silence, then a laugh. "Violent? Don't be dramatic, Mom. I'm just being smart. If she was stupid enough to let us live here for free all these years, that's her problem. We're just taking advantage of the opportunity." "Free." She said free, as if for the 3 years they had lived here I hadn't cooked for them every day. As if I hadn't washed their clothes, as if I hadn't paid for the electricity, the water, the gas. As if I hadn't given Robert $5,000 when he needed the down payment for his car because his credit was rejected. I moved away from the window before I could hear any more. I went back to my small bed and lay there staring at the ceiling, my heart beating so hard I could feel it in my ears. Now I knew the truth. It wasn't just about taking over a room. It was a calculated, meticulous plan to take my house from me, to take the only thing I had left in this world. And Robert knew. My son knew, and hadn't said a word. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me broken. I was going to be smart. I was going to plan. And when I struck back, it was going to hurt so much that they would never forget what it feels like to betray the person who gave you everything. But first, I needed help, and I knew exactly who to call. The next day, very early, I dialed a number I hadn't used in months. The phone rang 3 times before someone answered. "Mom, are you okay?" Lucy's voice sounded worried. I never called her so early. "Honey," I said, and my voice broke despite my efforts to sound strong. "I need you to come home. I need your help, and I need you to come now." Lucy arrived 2 days later. She couldn't come sooner. She had hearings scheduled at her law firm in a city a few states away, but she promised she would come for the weekend. Those 2 days were the longest of my life. Valerie noticed that something had changed in me. I no longer smiled at her. I no longer pretended everything was fine. She watched me with suspicion like a cat that knows the mouse is planning to escape. "Is everything okay, mother-in-law?" she asked me on Thursday morning as I was making breakfast. "Perfectly fine," I replied without looking at her. "You seem tense." "I'm fine." She put her coffee mug down on the counter with a loud thud. "Look, if you're still upset about the room, I think you're being very immature. It's time for you to get over it." "Things change. You're getting older. You need to adapt." I turned to look at her. She was wearing a designer tracksuit that cost what I used to earn in a week selling tamales 20 years ago. Her hair was up in a perfect ponytail. Her nails were freshly done, all paid for with money my son went into debt to give her. "You're right," I said with a calmness that surprised me. "Things change." She smiled, thinking she had won again. She had no idea what was coming. On Friday night, Valerie gave me the news. "Mother-in-law, some friends are coming over for lunch tomorrow. We're going to be in the living room, and we need privacy. Can you stay in your room? Oh, and if you could make something tasty, we'd appreciate it. You know your enchiladas are good. Make those." It wasn't a question. It was an order. Robert was sitting on the couch watching football on TV. He didn't say anything. He didn't even look at me. "What time?" I asked. "Around 1 in the afternoon, and please wear something presentable, not that old robe you always wear." I barely slept that night. I knew Lucy would arrive in the morning. I knew I just needed to hold on a little longer, but I never imagined that before my daughter arrived, I would experience the greatest humiliation of my life. Saturday, 11 in the morning. I started making the enchiladas, refried beans with the special touch my mother taught me, freshly made tortillas, cream, crumbled fresh cheese. The aroma filled the house. At 12:30, the doorbell rang. Valerie ran to open it. 4 women her age came in all dressed up, perfumed, laughing loudly. They brought bottles of wine bags from an expensive boutique. "Welcome to my house," Valerie said, emphasizing the "my" while glancing at me. They settled in the living room. I served the enchiladas on the breakfast bar, thinking they would come get them. But Valerie came into the kitchen and gestured with her hand. "Mother-in-law, bring them to the living room. And bring us the wine, too." I froze. "What? Serve us in the living room. We don't want to get up." I took a deep breath. I took the tray with the plates and went out. Valerie's friends looked at me with curiosity. "Oh, that looks delicious," said one of them, a blonde woman wearing sunglasses inside the house. I served the plates. I went to get the wine. When I came back with the bottle and glasses, Valerie was showing her friends her new room. "Come on, I'll show you how it turned out. It's beautiful." The 5 of them went upstairs. I stayed downstairs, feeling my stomach churn. I could hear their voices and laughter from the second floor. "It's gorgeous, Val. And this was your mother-in-law's room. Yeah, but you know how older ladies are, everything old and depressing. We did her a favor by moving her to a smaller room." Laughter. They came down after 10 minutes. They sat down to eat. I was in the kitchen cleaning, trying to disappear. But then I heard Valerie's voice. "Mother-in-law, can you bring us more napkins?" I came out with the napkins. When I put them on the table, one of the friends, a brunette with huge earrings, looked at me with a condescending smile. "And you're Robert's mom?" "Yes." "Oh, how convenient to have live-in help, right, Val?" she said to Valerie with a knowing nudge. My blood ran cold. "Very convenient," Valerie replied between laughs. "Although sometimes you have to tell her how to do things. You know the older generation had different standards." The laughter grew louder. Another friend, a redhead with long, decorated nails, looked directly at me. "And do they pay you, for cooking and cleaning?" The silence that followed was deafening. Valerie took a sip of wine, enjoying every second. "No, but we give her room and board." "That's enough, isn't it? Besides, she's family. Family helps each other out." The laughter exploded. I just stood there, my cheeks burning, feeling each laugh like a slap. They saw me as the maid, as a free employee in my own house. "Mother-in-law, can you clear these plates? We're done." My hands were shaking as I took the plates. One slipped, but I caught it before it fell. More laughter. "Careful now." I went back to the kitchen. I put the plates in the sink. And there, standing in front of the window where the midday sun streamed in, something inside me broke. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was silent, like when glass cracks a fine fracture that changes everything. I leaned on the sink, closing my eyes, breathing deeply. The tears wanted to come, but I didn't let them. I wasn't going to cry. Not anymore. At that moment, I heard a voice behind me. "Mom!" I turned around. Lucy was standing in the kitchen doorway. I hadn't heard her arrive. She had her small suitcase, wearing jeans and a simple blouse. But what I noticed most were her eyes filled with tears of rage. "How long have you been here?" I whispered. "Long enough to hear everything." Her voice trembled. "Long enough to understand what's happening in this house." More laughter came from the living room. Valerie was telling some story, her voice loud and confident. Lucy dropped her suitcase on the floor and came towards me. She hugged me tight, and in that hug, I allowed myself for a second to be fragile, to be the mother who needed her daughter's comfort. "No more, Mom," she whispered in my ear. "This ends today." She pulled away, wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, and on her face, I saw the same determination I had when I was young, and decided to build this house against all odds. "Where's Robert?" she asked. "He went out, said he'd be back tonight." "Perfect. Then let's get to work. You and I like it always should have been. What are you going to do?" Lucy took my hands, her lawyer's hands soft but firm. "I'm going to do what I should have done a long time ago. Protect you, defend what's yours, and teach that woman that she can't steal your life. Lucy, she has papers plans, and I have the law on my side, and I have something she'll never have." "What's that, the truth?" she said, squeezing my hands. "Now give me your phone. I need to see those pictures you told me about, and then we're going to review every document for this house, every paper, every receipt. We're going to build a case so solid that when we're done, Valerie will wish she'd never set foot in this house." From the living room, Valerie's voice shouted, "Mother-in-law, more wine." Lucy looked at me. I looked back at her, and for the first time in days, I smiled. Not a happy smile, a war smile. "You go," I told Lucy. "Introduce yourself. I want to see her face when she realizes I'm not alone anymore." My daughter walked out of the kitchen with firm steps. I followed a few feet behind. Valerie was pouring more wine when she saw Lucy. Her smile froze. "Lucy, what a surprise." "Hello, Valerie." My daughter said, her voice as cold as ice. "I came to spend a few days with my mom. Hope you don't mind me using my old room. Oh, wait, that's right. It's yours now, isn't it?" The silence in the living room was absolute. Valerie's friends looked between us, not understanding what was happening. Valerie tried to regain control. "Of course, no problem. You can stay in the other guest room. Don't worry, I'm already settled in the room with Mom." Lucy smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. "We have a lot to talk about. Legal matters about property inheritance, that kind of thing. Right, Mom?" All eyes turned to me. "That's right, honey," I said, and my voice came out firmer than it had in days. "A lot of things to review." I saw the color drain from Valerie's face, and I knew she knew. She knew her game was over, that the dumb, manipulable mother-in-law she could strip of everything had just called in reinforcements, and these reinforcements weren't going to play nice. Valerie's friends left half an hour later. The atmosphere had become awkward tense, like when everyone knows a storm is about to break, but no one wants to be the first to mention it. Valerie saw them off at the door with fake kisses and promises to see them soon, but I could see her hands trembling as she closed the door. Lucy and I were sitting at the dining room table. My daughter had taken out her laptop, a slim silver one that shone under the light and had spread papers all over the table. I had given her my phone with the pictures I took from Valerie's desk. "This is serious, Mom," Lucy said as she reviewed the images, enlarging them with her fingers on the screen. "Very serious." Valerie walked into the room. She had taken off her heels and was walking barefoot, trying to look casual, but I noticed her eyes kept darting to the papers on the table. "What are you two doing?" Lucy looked up. "Reviewing documents, Mom's legal affairs. Don't worry about it." "What documents?" "The ones for the house." I answered, looking at her directly. "The deed, the payment records, everything that proves who owns this property." Valerie crossed her arms. "No one's saying it's not your house." "Oh, really?" Lucy took out her own phone and pressed the screen. Suddenly a voice filled the room. Valerie's voice talking on the phone in the backyard. "It's almost ours, Mom. The old lady is confused. She doesn't know about the loan yet." I had recorded everything that night without her knowing. My old phone had a recorder function that Lucy had taught me to use months ago. The color drained from Valerie's face. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. "Sit down." Lucy said in her lawyer voice, the kind that doesn't take no for an answer. Valerie remained standing. I said sit down. Valerie obeyed, collapsing onto the sofa as if her legs could no longer support her. Lucy stopped the recording. Now we're going to talk, and you're going to tell me the truth. What loan? I don't know what you're talking about. Don't take me for an idiot. Lucy's shout surprised even me. My daughter had always been calm, measured. I have the recording. I have pictures of legal documents you were researching about possession rights. I have receipts for $15,000 in renovations that were not authorized by the owner of this house. So I'm going to ask you one more time, what loan? Valerie bit her lip, her eyes filled with tears, but I no longer felt any pity. I just wanted answers. Robert, she began in a broken voice. Robert took out a loan. For how much? Silence. How much? $25,000. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. $25,000, more than it cost to build part of this house. And what did you use as collateral? Lucy asked, although her tone suggested she already knew the answer. The house, Valerie whispered. But it's not what you think. It's not what I think. Lucy stood up, pacing around Valerie like a lawyer cross-examining a witness. You used my mother's house without her knowledge, without her signature as collateral for a loan. Do you have any idea that's fraud? We have the signature, Valerie burst out. Robert forged it. She covered her mouth, but it was too late. The words were out. The world stopped. What did you just say? My voice was barely a whisper. Valerie started crying for real now, with sobs that shook her body. We didn't want to do it like this, but we needed the money. Robert has debts, a lot of debts you don't know about, Mom. Credit cards, personal loans. If we didn't pay, they were going to sue him, put him in jail. And your solution was to steal from his mother. Lucy's voice was like steel. To forge her signature. We were going to fix everything before you found out. Valerie looked at me desperately. The plan was to remodel the house, increase its value, and then sell it. With that money, we would pay off the loan and give you your share. We were going to buy you a small, comfortable apartment where you wouldn't have to worry about anything. Where I wouldn't be in the way. I finished the sentence for her. A heavy silence fell. And the legal research on possession rights, Lucy continued. Was that also part of this generous plan? Valerie didn't answer. That's what I thought. Lucy went back to her laptop. Mom, give me the deed to the house. I stood up on shaky legs and went to my room, the guest room where I now slept. From the bottom of my suitcase, I took out a yellow envelope where I kept the most important documents of my life. The deed was there, protected in a plastic sleeve. I brought it to Lucy. She reviewed it carefully, turning each page with a lawyer's attention. Here it is, she said after a few minutes. Spousal Protection Clause. Dad was very smart when he drafted this with the notary. The house is solely in Mom's name. For any transaction, sale, or use of the property as collateral, her notarized signature is required with 2 witnesses. And it specifically states here that no one can transfer rights or create liens without the explicit consent of the owner. She looked at Valerie with eyes that could cut glass, which means any document you signed with a lender is void, completely invalid. And if you forged my mother's signature, you're not just committing property fraud, you're committing a federal crime. Valerie was as pale as a ghost. Please, please don't do this. Robert is your brother. Robert is a thief, Lucy said coldly, and you are his accomplice. The front door opened. Robert walked in with a grocery bag, whistling carefree. He stopped dead when he saw the 3 of us in the living room, the tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. What's going on here? Sit down, Robert, I said, and my voice didn't tremble anymore. It was filled with something new, a disappointment so deep it had turned into strength. Mom, Sit down. He sat next to Valerie. My son, the boy I carried for 9 months, the one I nursed, the one I watched over when he had a fever, the one I defended from bullies at school. The boy who once told me that when he grew up he would build me a castle. Now he couldn't even look me in the eye. Lucy explained to your brother what we just discovered, I said. My daughter took out a folder and began to read aloud. Every document, every receipt, every piece of evidence of their betrayal, the $15,000 in renovations, the legal documents researching how to dispossess me, the $25,000 loan with a forged signature, the recorded conversations of Valerie planning to take my house. With each revelation, Robert sank deeper into the sofa. When Lucy finished, the silence was absolute. Even the birds outside seemed to have stopped singing. "Is it true?" I asked my son. "Is all of this true?" Robert covered his face with his hands. "Mom, the debts. I didn't know what to do. I was going to pay you back everything, I swear." "You didn't answer me. Did you forge my signature?" He looked up. His eyes were red. "Yes." That simple word fell like a stone into a bottomless well. "Then this is what's going to happen," Lucy said, taking control. "You have 48 hours to get out of this house. You will take only your clothes and personal belongings. All the furniture you bought with the fraud money stays here." "You can't kick us out," Valerie shouted. "This house belongs to Robert too. It's his inheritance." "It was his inheritance," I corrected her, "until he decided to rob me while I was still alive." "Mom, please." Robert knelt in front of me. Real tears streamed down his face. "Please give me another chance. I'll fix everything. I'll get the money. You'll what, Robert? Are you going to give me back my dignity? Are you going to erase the fact that you allowed me to be treated like a maid in my own house? Are you going to make me forget that you signed documents with my name without my permission?" "Mom, no." I stood up. "For 42 years, I gave you everything. My youth, my health, my entire life. And when I finally needed you to take care of me, to respect me, you chose to betray me in the worst possible way. Mom, I love you. Love doesn't steal. Love doesn't lie. Love doesn't plan to ship its mother off to a small apartment to keep what she built." Robert was sobbing on the floor. Valerie was on the couch staring at the wall. Lucy took some papers from her folder. "Here is the document you will both sign. It's an agreement where you acknowledge you have no rights to this property, that all improvements were made without authorization, and you agree not to initiate any legal action against my mother. If you don't sign it, we file charges for property fraud with the district attorney's office tomorrow morning." "And if we sign it?" Valerie asked, her voice barely audible. "If you sign it and leave without any trouble, we won't press charges. It's that simple." Robert looked at the document. Then he looked at me. "Mom, if I sign this, will you ever forgive me?" The question hung in the air, and I wondered, could I forgive something like this? Could I ever trust the son who had betrayed me this way again? I don't know. I answered honestly. Maybe someday, but not today, and not soon. Robert took the pen Lucy offered him. With a trembling hand, he signed the document. Valerie did the same, her tears staining the paper. 48 hours, Lucy repeated. "And if you dare to damage anything, steal anything, or cause any problems, the deal is off and you're going straight to jail." They stood up like zombies and went upstairs. We heard them walking around on the second floor, opening drawers, speaking in whispers. I collapsed onto the sofa. The full weight of the past few days hit me all at once. I started to tremble. Lucy sat next to me and held me. "It's over, Mom, it's over." But I knew it wasn't over, that the next 2 days were going to be hell. That watching my son pack up his life and leave the house I built for him was going to break me in ways I couldn't even imagine. But I also knew something else, that for the first time in a long time, I wasn't alone, and that this battle, finally, I was going to win. The next 2 days were a silent torture. Robert and Valerie moved through the house like ghosts, avoiding my gaze, packing their things into cardboard boxes they got from the supermarket. The sound of packing tape sealing the boxes became the soundtrack of those 48 hours. Lucy never left my side. We slept together in the guest room, holding each other, like when she was a little girl having nightmares. But now the nightmare was real, and we were wide awake living it. On Monday morning, the deadline, Lucy decided it was time for one last conversation. A conversation to lay everything on the table, without yelling, without tears, just truths. "We need to close this properly," she told me as we had coffee in the kitchen. "Not for them, for you, so you can move on without any doubts." At 10 in the morning, the four of us sat at the dining room table, the same table where we had shared hundreds of meals. The table where Robert had done his homework as a child, where we celebrated his birthdays, his graduations, his engagement to Valerie. Now it was the table of the final judgment. Lucy had a thick folder in front of her. She opened it with precise movements and began to take out documents one by one. "Before you go," she began, "I want you to understand exactly what you did, not to make you feel bad, but so you never do this to anyone again." She placed the first document on the table. The deed to the house signed in 2005. Total construction cost $80,000. My mother worked for 15 years to save that money. 15 years cleaning, cooking, selling things, while you, she looked at Robert, were studying, going out with friends, living a normal life. Robert stared at this table. Lucy put down another paper. "Bank statements. Here are the movements on Mom's credit card for the last 6 months." She pointed to a line marked with a yellow highlighter. "Charges at department stores for $8,700. Valerie, your name appears on several of the receipts as the person who signed. You used her card without authorization." Valerie wrung her hands but said nothing. "Next." Lucy put down more papers. "Loan contract with a loan shark from the neighborhood. $25,000 borrowed at 30% annual interest. Document with my mother's forged signature using this house as collateral." She looked up. "Do you know what would have happened if you didn't pay? The loan shark would have started legal proceedings, and even though the signature was fake, the process would have been long, expensive, and agonizing. Mom would have had to hire lawyers, go to court, prove the fraud. All while you were enjoying the stolen money." "It wasn't like that," Robert started. "Yes, it was," Lucy exploded. "Exactly like that. And the worst part is, you showed no remorse until you were caught." She put down another document. "Quotes from lawyers specializing in property law. Valerie, you got 3 different legal opinions on how to claim possession rights to a property. All the consultations were in February and March of this year. This wasn't an impulse. It was a plan calculated over months." "I just wanted to secure our future," Valerie muttered. "At whose expense?" Lucy asked her. "At the expense of a 67-year-old woman who gave everything for her family." Valerie stood up abruptly. "That's enough." "What do you want me to say?" "That I'm sorry." "Well, I am. Happy now. But don't pretend your mom is a saint. She has always manipulated Robert, always made him feel guilty, like he owes her his whole life, just because she decided to sacrifice herself." I couldn't breathe. I couldn't. "How dare you?" I began. "It's the truth." Valerie's cheeks were red, her eyes bright. "It's always, Mom suffered so much, Mom worked so hard, Mom sacrificed so much." And you know what? Yes, she did, but that was her choice. Robert didn't ask her to work herself to death. He just wanted a mother, not a martyr who charges him for every dollar she invested. Robert put his hand on her arm. "Val, stop." "No, Robert, I'm not going to be quiet anymore." She turned to me. "I know we made mistakes. I know we were wrong, but you're not perfect either." Always trying to control Robert's life, always meddling in our marriage, always comparing me to your perfect life of sacrifice. The words hurt. They hurt because there was a small grain of truth in them. Maybe I had been too present. Maybe I had used my sacrifice as an emotional weapon without realizing it. "You're right," I said, and everyone looked at me surprised. "I'm not perfect, and maybe I did make mistakes as a mother. Maybe I pushed too hard. Maybe I reminded you too many times of everything I did for you." I stood up, looking Robert in the eye. "But none of that justifies what you did. None of that justifies stealing from me, forging my signature, planning to dispossess me of the only thing I have left. If you were upset with me, you should have talked about it. If you felt I was pressuring you, you should have set boundaries, but you had no right to destroy me." Robert had tears running down his cheeks. "Mom, I never wanted to destroy you. I just felt so pressured. The debts work Valerie wanting a better house and me not being able to give her anything. And there was this house so big, just for you. And I thought if we could have it, everything would be fixed. And my opinion, my will, did that not matter? I thought you wouldn't notice until it was too late, he said, and the brutal honesty of his words was like a punch. I thought by the time you realized everything would be legally settled and you'd have to accept it. There it was, the naked truth. It wasn't a mistake, not an impulse. It was a deliberate plan to steal my house before I could defend myself. Lucy placed the last document on the table. Mom's new will. We drafted it yesterday with the notary. It specifies that this house upon her death will pass entirely to my name. Robert is explicitly excluded from any inheritance related to this property. You can contest it if you want, but with all the evidence we have, you won't win. Robert turned pale. You're disinheriting me. Yes, I replied, and my voice didn't tremble. Because a son who steals from his mother doesn't deserve to inherit anything from her. But you always said the house was for your children, for both of us. It was for my children, but you decided to stop being my son the day you forged my signature. The silence that followed was devastating. Robert broke down, crying deep sobs that shook his whole body. Valerie held him, but even she seemed to understand there was no going back. You can go now, Lucy said. Your deadline was an hour ago. We gave you extra time, but no more. You have 2 hours to finish packing and leave. After that, if you're still here, we're calling the police. Robert stood up, staggering. He looked at me one last time. Is there anything I can do to make you forgive me? The question hung in the air, and I wondered, what could he do? What actions could erase this betrayal? I don't know, Robert. Maybe with time. Maybe if you prove with actions, not words, that you understand what you did. But that doesn't mean you'll live here again. That doesn't mean I'll include you in my will again. Some things once broken can never be the same. But I'm your son, and I'm your mother, and you betrayed me. I took a breath. Now go, please. Before I regret not pressing charges. They went upstairs for the last time. Lucy and I followed to make sure they didn't take anything that wasn't theirs. We watched them put the last of their things in suitcases, take down their decor from my bedroom, watched Valerie remove the expensive curtains she had bought, the framed pictures of the two of them, the modern lamp. When they finished, they brought the suitcases down. 4 large suitcases, 3 boxes. That was all they were taking from 3 years of living here. Robert loaded everything into his car parked outside, a car for which I had given him the down payment 2 years ago. Before getting in, he turned one last time. Take care, Mom. Robert, I said, and closed the door. I stood there on the other side, listening to the engine start, to it driving away, to my son leaving my house maybe forever. Lucy hugged me from behind. You did the right thing, Mom. Then why does it hurt so much? I whispered. Because love doesn't just turn off overnight. Because even though he did a terrible thing, he's still your son. And that's the hardest part of all of this. That the pain comes from exactly that love. I cried in my daughter's arms. I cried for the son I lost. Not to death, but to betrayal. And that kind of loss hurts in ways death never could. But when the tears finally dried, when I pulled away from Lucy and looked at my house free of invaders, free of lies, I felt something new growing in my chest. It wasn't happiness, not yet. It was something smaller, more fragile, but real. It was peace. And in that moment, I knew I was going to be okay. That it might take time, that I might never be the same, but I was going to survive this. Because I had survived worse things. And I had always pulled through. The days after Robert and Valerie left were strange. The house felt different, quieter, bigger. Sometimes I would find myself setting 3 plates on the table out of habit, and then I'd have to put one away when I remembered it was just Lucy and me now. My daughter stayed for a full week. She took time off from her firm to be with me to make sure I was okay, but mostly to help me reclaim my space. The first project was undoing everything Valerie had done in my bedroom. "We're going to give this room its soul back, Mom," Lucy said on Tuesday morning. We went down to the garage and started bringing my furniture up. My mother's dresser, heavy, dark wood with hand carvings. Lucy got help from 2 neighborhood boys to bring up my bed. When they assembled it in its original spot, I sat on the mattress, and something inside me settled. "It doesn't smell like her perfume anymore," I said. We kept the windows open all week. The smell left, and so did she. Lucy hung my photographs back on the walls. "Look, Mom, here are you and Dad on your wedding day. So young." The photo looked at me from its frame, the glass now repaired. Louis in his brown suit, me in my simple white dress. We had our whole lives ahead of us. We didn't know his would be so short and mine so difficult. "I miss him," I whispered. "Especially now. He would know what to do about Robert." "I think he would have done exactly what you did," Lucy said. "Dad was gentle, but he wasn't a fool. He didn't tolerate betrayal." We spent 2 full days restoring my room. We painted the walls peach again. Lucy found the exact shade of paint I had used years ago online. We put up my floral curtains, my knitted blankets, my family photos. When we finished, I stood in the center of my room and turned slowly, looking at every corner. "There," I said, "I'm home again." But while I was reclaiming my space, Robert and Valerie were discovering the consequences of their actions. Lucy kept in touch with some people in the neighborhood, and the news came in whispers through gossipy neighbors who came to see how I was, but who really wanted to share what they knew. Mrs. Lupita, the lady from the corner store, was the first to visit. "Oh, Emily, what a terrible thing about your son," she said while drinking the coffee I offered her. "I saw him the other day carrying boxes into an apartment building in the industrial park. Tiny little apartments, the kind that rent for $950 a month. $950. Almost all of Robert's salary would go to rent." "And how did he look?" I asked, unable to stop myself. He was my son, after all. Worn-out honey with dark circles down to the floor. "And Valerie?" "Oh, she was in a foul mood, yelling at the moving guys, complaining about everything." A week later, I ran into Mr. Martin, the owner of the hardware store where Robert used to buy things. "Mrs. Fuentes, your son came in the other day, asking for a loan. He told me while I was buying new pots for my garden. I told him I couldn't help him, but he looked desperate, said collectors were looking for him. That the loan shark he owes is sending people to his job. The loan shark, the $25,000 loan. Without the house as collateral, how was Robert going to pay Lucy? Did her own research and told me what she found out. Robert is trying to renegotiate the debt, she told me one night at dinner. But the loan shark won't budge. He's charging him interest on top of interest. The debt has already grown to $32,000, and with no assets to offer, he can't get another loan to pay this one. And at his job, that's another problem." Lucy picked at her food without appetite. "One of the collectors went to his office. Made a scene at the reception. Robert's boss found out about the debts and the fraud. They didn't fire him, but they demoted him. He's no longer a supervising engineer. Now he's an assistant. They cut his salary almost in half." I put my hand to my chest. As much as Robert had hurt me, he was still my son, and hearing how his life was falling apart pained me in complicated ways. And Valerie, she's the one really suffering. Lucy almost smiled, but it was a sad smile. She had to get a job for the first time in years. I saw her at the supermarket 2 days ago. She was filling out a job application to be a cashier. The image of Valerie, always so put together, so smug working as a cashier, was hard to imagine. 2 weeks after the eviction, I received a call. It was an unknown number. I hesitated before answering. "Hello, Emily. It's Claudia, Valerie's mom." Claudia. Valerie's mother, the one who told her daughter she was smart for trying to steal my house. "What do you want?" "I need to talk to you." Her voice sounded tired. "Can we meet?" "I have nothing to talk to you about." "Please, just half an hour. I promise it'll be worth your while." Something in her tone made me agree. We arranged to meet at a coffee shop near my house the next day. Claudia arrived on time. She was a woman my age, well-dressed, but her face was marked with exhaustion. She sat across from me and ordered a black coffee. "Thank you for coming," she said. "You have 20 minutes," I replied coldly. She sighed deeply. "I came to apologize on behalf of my daughter and myself." Apologize. I knew what Valerie was planning. She told me everything. And instead of stopping her, I encouraged her. Her eyes filled with tears. I thought she was being clever, that she was securing her future. "I didn't think about you. I didn't think we were destroying a family." "And now you think about it." "Now I see my daughter shattered, crying every night, working jobs she hates, living in an apartment where you can hear everything from the neighbors. And the worst part is Robert blames her. He says it was all her idea, that he never would have done anything if she hadn't pressured him." "And was it?" Claudia shook her head. "I don't know. I think they were both at fault, but Robert is a coward. He'd rather blame her than accept his responsibility. And Valerie, my daughter, is paying a very high price, as she should." "I know." Claudia picked up her coffee with trembling hands. "I just came to tell you that I'm sorry, and that if you can ever forgive Valerie, she is repentant, truly." I just looked at her. This woman who had encouraged her daughter to rob me, who had participated in the plan. Now she came full of regret because it all went wrong. "Forgiveness isn't asked for, Claudia. It's earned, and your daughter has a very long road ahead of her if she wants to earn it." "I understand. And tell her something for me. Tell her to learn her lesson. That you should never, ever try to build your happiness on the destruction of someone else. Because life has a way of settling those accounts. Always." Claudia nodded, finished her coffee, and left. I never saw her again. That night, Lucy and I had dinner in the garden. I had bought some string lights and hung them in the trees, even though it wasn't Christmas season. I just wanted my house to feel joyful again. "How are you feeling, Mom?" Lucy asked. "Strange," I admitted. "Sad, angry, relieved all at the same time." "That's normal. You lost your son, but you got your house back. It's a painful trade. Do you think Robert will ever come back? Apologize for real?" Lucy thought for a moment. "I don't know, Mom. Maybe. Or maybe he'll never find the courage. Some children never learn. And me, will I be able to forgive him? Only you know that. And only time will tell." I looked at my house lit up with colorful lights, my garden with my healthy geraniums. My space reclaimed, my dignity restored, and I knew that whether I forgave Robert or not, I was going to be okay, because I had learned the most important lesson of all, that love doesn't mean allowing abuse, that setting boundaries isn't cruelty, that protecting yourself doesn't make you a bad mother. It makes you human, and it makes you strong. Lucy had to go back to her city after 2 weeks. Her job needed her. Her life was there. She hugged me tight at the door before she left. "Will you be okay alone, Mom?" "I'll be fine," I told her, and this time it wasn't a lie. "I'll call you every day. And if you need anything, anything at all, I'll be on a plane and here in 3 hours." "I know, honey. Now go. Go on, don't worry." I watched her drive away and stood at the door feeling the morning sun on my face. The house was silent, but it was no longer an uncomfortable silence. It was peace. The following months were about rebuilding. Not just my home, but myself. I hired Mr. Fermin, a man from the neighborhood, to help me fix things that had broken over time. Leaks I had ignored, doors that creaked, windows that didn't close properly. Little by little, the house became what it always should have been. My sanctuary. I started cooking again. But now I cooked for myself, with time, with love. I made my favorite dishes without worrying about anyone else's tastes. Mole when I felt like it. Chiles en nogada out of season. Sweet tamales just because. And as I healed, news about Robert and Valerie kept coming. I didn't seek it out, but the neighborhood has eyes and ears everywhere. Mr. Fermin told me that Robert had sold his car. "I saw him on the subway the other day, Mrs. Fuentes. Your son on the subway at 6 a.m, packed in with everyone else." He looked defeated. No car, no good salary with growing debts. Life was charging him for every stolen dollar. Mrs. Lupita told me about Valerie. "I saw her at the market buying the cheapest of everything. bruised tomatoes, chicken that's about to expire, and she was carrying everything in plastic bags because she doesn't even have a shopping cart anymore. She used to come here showing off her designer bags, remember? I remembered. Valerie always came with bags from Macy's, from Nordstrom, showing off her purchases like trophies. Now she was looking for deals at the market like any ordinary person. But the story that impacted me the most came 3 months after the eviction. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was in the garden watering my plants when the doorbell rang. I went to open it and found a woman I didn't know. Mid-30s, well-dressed with a stern look on her face. Emily Fuentes. Yes, that's me. I'm Gabriela Montes, an attorney. I represent Mr. Julio Estrada, the lender to whom your son Robert owes $32,000. My heart sped up. I don't owe anyone anything. I know. But your son used this house as collateral, and although we know the signature was forged and the document is void, my client wants to recover his money. I came to ask if you would be willing to— No, I interrupted her. Whatever you're going to ask, the answer is no. That debt is not mine, it's Robert's, and he can pay it. The lawyer sighed. Mrs. Fuentes, I understand your position, but your son has no way to pay. My client is considering other measures legal, but unpleasant. Are you threatening me? No, ma'am. I'm just informing you. Robert filed a complaint alleging that you knew about the loan and are now refusing to help him. It's a lie, we know, but I wanted you to know. I felt my blood boil. My son filed a complaint against me 2 weeks ago. It was immediately dismissed because it had no legal basis, but he did it. When the lawyer left, I sat on the sofa feeling like the world was spinning. Robert hadn't just stolen from me, hadn't just betrayed me. Now he was trying to blame me for his debts. I called Lucy immediately. Mom, breathe, breathe, she said from the other end of the line. That complaint has no value. It's a desperate attempt by Robert to get himself out of trouble. How could he do that, Lucy? How could he try to drag me into his problems after everything? Because he's scared, because he's a coward, and because he still hasn't learned that actions have consequences. Well then, let him learn the hard way. And so he did. 2 weeks later, I heard from Mrs. Lupita that Robert had been officially sued. The loan shark lost his patience and took the case to court. With no assets to seize, they requested direct payroll deduction. 30% of Robert's salary would go directly to paying off the debt for the next 5 years. The boy won't even be able to breathe, Mrs. Lupita said, shaking her head. With the little he earns and taking away 30%, they'll be living on a prayer. And so it was. Valerie had to get a second job. I saw her one night when I went to the 7-Eleven near my house. She was there behind the counter in the red and green uniform, attending to customers with an exhausted face. Our eyes met. She turned pale. I didn't say anything, paid for my things, and left. But I saw in her eyes everything she had lost. Her arrogance, her confidence, her perfect plan for an easy life. Justice doesn't always come with dramatic blows. Sometimes it comes like this, slow, steady, like water wearing away a stone. 4 months after the eviction, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. This time, it was Robert. Mom. His voice sounded broken small. I need to talk to you. I have nothing to talk about. Please, just 5 minutes. I need to ask you something. Something in his tone made me agree. We met at the same coffee shop where I had spoken with Claudia. Robert arrived looking unrecognizable. He had lost weight. He had gray hairs he didn't have before, deep dark circles wrinkled clothes. He sat in front of me and couldn't look me in the eye. Thanks for coming, he murmured. What do you want, Robert? I came to apologize. For real, without excuses, without justifications. What I did was unforgivable. I stole from you, I betrayed you. I tried to take what was yours, and then, like a coward, I tried to blame you for my own mistakes. The words sounded sincere, but I didn't know if I could believe him anymore. And what do you expect me to do with that apology? Nothing. I don't expect your forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just needed you to know that every day I wake up with the weight of what I did, That I can't sleep thinking about your face when you found out everything. That I've lost my mother because of my own stupidity. Does Valerie know you're here? Valerie and I separated. I remained silent. It didn't work. When the money ran out, when we had to face reality, we realized we had nothing else. Our marriage was built on comfort and appearances. Without that, only resentment was left. He rubbed his face. She went to her mother's 2 weeks ago. We signed the divorce papers yesterday. And you came to tell me this. Why? Because I needed you to know that I'm paying. That life is making me pay for every mistake, and that even though I can't fix what I broke, I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be a better person. Not for you. For me. Because I don't want to end up alone, bitter with nothing and no one. I kept looking at him, my son, the man who had been a sweet boy who brought me flowers from the garden, the one who hugged me and told me I was his hero. Where had that boy gone? Robert, I don't know if I can ever fully forgive you. I don't know if our relationship will ever be what it was, but I took a breath. I hope you find peace. That you learn from this, and that you never ever do to anyone what you did to me. Does that mean? It doesn't mean anything yet. It means I'm open to seeing what you do with your life from now on. Words are easy, Robert. Actions are what count. Tears welled up in his eyes. Thank you, Mom. It's more than I deserve. He stood up to leave. Before leaving the coffee shop, he turned. I love you, Mom. I've always loved you, and I'm so sorry I hurt you. I watched him go walking slowly with slumped shoulders, and I felt something strange in my chest. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But maybe it was the beginning of something. A very long road to healing. Because poetic justice doesn't always mean total destruction. Sometimes it means giving someone the chance to rebuild themselves from the ashes of their own mistakes. And maybe, just maybe, Robert would make it. Or maybe not. But that was no longer my responsibility. My only responsibility now was to myself. And for the first time in a long time, I was okay. It's been 8 months since Robert and Valerie left my house. 8 months that feel like a lifetime. Now when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is open the curtains in my room and let the sun in. The light fills the space and touches every object I recovered. My mother's dresser, the photographs on the walls, the knitted quilt my sister gave me when we first moved in. Everything is in its place, and so am I. I've learned to live alone again. It's not a sad loneliness, the kind that crushes your chest. It's a chosen, quiet loneliness. It's mine. Lucy comes to visit once a month. She stays for the weekend, and we cook together like when she was a little girl. She teaches me how to use my phone better. Now I can even make video calls. She shows me pictures of her life a few states away, of her work, of her friends. She tells me her plans. And I listen with pride, knowing that at least one of my children grew up to be a good person. Mom, you need to meet someone, she told me on her last visit. You can't stay cooped up here forever. I'm not cooped up, honey. I'm where I want to be. But a partner, some friends, something. I smiled at her. I have friends. Mrs. Lupita and I play dominoes on Thursdays. I joined a church group that does crafts, and Mr. Fermin invited me to the Saturday afternoon dances at the community center. Really? Lucy looked at me surprised. And have you gone? I went once. I laughed. I danced with a very kind gentleman named Arthur. 72, a widower with 3 daughters who live out of state. He stepped on my feet twice, but it was fun. My daughter hugged me. Oh, Mom, I'm so happy to see you like this. After everything that happened, I thought you'd become bitter angry at the world. I was angry. For a long time. But anger is like a poison you drink, hoping it will kill the other person. It only poisons you. I looked out the window at my garden. I decided I had wasted enough time. I wasn't going to waste any more on grudges. That night, after Lucy went to bed, I was alone in the living room. I took out an old box from under my bed. Inside were all the letters and drawings Robert had made for me as a child. For the best mom in the world, one said in his crooked, childish handwriting. A drawing of the 3 of us, Louis, Robert, and me, holding hands in front of a house. I cried. Not from rage, from sadness, because that child existed. That love existed. And even though the adult Robert had betrayed me, the child for whom I was once, everything was also real. I put the box away again. I didn't throw it out. Maybe someday I would need it to remember that people are complicated, that we can love and hurt, that we can be good and make terrible mistakes. Robert has called me 3 times in these 8 months, short, awkward conversations at first. He tells me he got a new job, better paying, at a small construction company, that he's living in a rented room alone learning to cook, that he's going to therapy to understand why he made the choices he made. I haven't given him false hope. I haven't said all is forgiven, because it's not. But I listen. And maybe with time we can build something new. Not what we had before. That's dead. But maybe something different, more honest, more real. Or maybe not. And that's okay too. Because I learned that a mother's love doesn't mean sacrificing yourself until you disappear. It doesn't mean letting them walk all over you because they're your blood. True love includes boundaries. It includes respect. It includes the dignity to say, this far and no further. This house I built with my own hands, brick by brick, dollar by dollar, is no longer just a building. It's a symbol. It's proof that I can survive impossible losses, that I can get up when I'm knocked down, that my worth doesn't depend on whether my children acknowledge me or not. I am worthy because of who I am, because of what I've built, for the battles I've won and the ones I've lost, for every scar I carry with dignity. Now when I walk through my house, I touch the walls and whisper to them, we endured. You and I, we endured together. And it's true. The other day, Mrs. Lupita told me that Valerie left the neighborhood, that she moved to another state with her mother, that she left everything behind and started over. I wish her the best. I really do. Because holding a grudge is like carrying stones. They only weigh you down. Mr. Fermin told me he saw Robert at church last Sunday. He looked different, ma'am. More humble, more present. Maybe he's changing. Maybe not. Time will tell. But I'm no longer waiting for anyone to change for me to be happy. I no longer need my children's validation to know I was a good mother. I did the best I could with what I had. I gave everything I had to give. And if that wasn't enough for Robert, that's his problem, not mine. Tonight I sat in my garden with a cup of chamomile tea. The colorful lights I never took down illuminate the trees. It's cold, but I like the feel of the fresh air on my face. It reminds me that I'm alive, that I survived. And as I sit there thinking about everything that happened, about everything I lost, and everything I gained, I come to a simple but powerful conclusion. It was worth it. It was worth fighting for what was mine. It was worth setting boundaries, even though it hurt. It was worth saying no, even when they called me selfish. It was worth defending myself, even if it meant losing temporarily, or forever, the relationship with my son. Because at the end of the day, when I close my eyes in my bed, in my room, in my house, I can sleep in peace. I don't have to wonder who will try to dispossess me tomorrow. I don't have to walk on eggshells in my own home. I don't have to pretend everything is okay when it's not. I am free, and that freedom, that peace is priceless. Today I want to say something to all of you who are listening, to all the women who have given so much, who have sacrificed so much, who feel like they can't go on. You have the right to set boundaries. You have the right to say enough. You have the right to protect what you built with your own hands, with your own sweat, with your own tears. You are not bad mothers for demanding respect. You are not bad people for defending yourselves. You are not selfish for putting your well-being first. Generosity is beautiful. Sacrifice is noble. But when that generosity turns into abuse, when that sacrifice erases you as a person, when you give so much that there's nothing left of you, then it's not love. It's self-destruction. And you are worth more than that. Your children, your partners, your family members have to learn that respect isn't asked for, it's demanded. That love without respect isn't love. That family doesn't mean infinite tolerance for abuse. If someone tries to take what is yours, whether it's a house, your dignity, or your peace, you have the right to defend what belongs to you. And if that means walking away from people you love, if that means being alone temporarily, if that means being called harsh or bitter, so be it. because chosen solitude is 1,000 times better than company that destroys you. And remember, it's never too late to take your life back. I was 67 years old when I had to face the greatest betrayal of my life. 67. Many people told me I was too old to fight, to start over, to be alone. But here I am at 68, stronger than ever, more at peace than ever, more myself than ever. Age doesn't define you. The mistakes of others don't define you. What defines you is how you respond when life hits you. Whether you stay down or get up. Whether you accept the abuse or you say, never again. I chose to get up. And if you're listening to this and you're going through something similar, I want you to know you can get up too. You have that strength inside you. Maybe you don't believe it now. Maybe you feel broken, finished, too tired to fight. But the strength is there waiting. You just need to make the decision. One decision at a time, one day at a time, one boundary at a time. And one day, I don't know when you'll wake up and realize you survived, that you moved on, that you got your life back. And that day you will smile and you will know that every tear, every fight, every moment of pain was worth it. Because in the end, the only thing that really matters is this. Can you look at yourself in the mirror and be proud of the woman you see? Can you sleep in peace, knowing you defended yourself? Can you live with dignity in the space you built? If the answer is yes, then you've won. And I, Emily Fuentes, 68 years old, owner of this house that I built with my own hands, can say with all my heart, I won. If this story touched your heart, if it made you reflect on your own life, leave me a comment telling me where you're watching from. Share your country, your city, and if you know someone who needs to hear this message, share this video. Give it a like so more women can find the strength they carry within, and subscribe to the Elderly Stories channel to continue joining us for more real-life stories of real women who found their dignity when all seemed lost. Remember, your life belongs to you, your space belongs to you, your peace belongs to you, and nobody has the right to take it away. See you in the next story. Take good care. And never forget, you are worth everything. The end.